From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas and Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I sit down with Ryan Waterbury and we talk about why you should not use just rented land for your digital marketing. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I'm here doing my monthly podcast with Ryan Waterbury, my partner in crime. How are you today, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty well today.
Oh, good. It's spring has sprung, I think, and the weather's crazy. In Toronto, we're above zero. Yay. We're not freezing for a change. And we'll just
speak for yourself.
We'll send all the Arctic air to Minnesota because we can.
Yes. No, we're actually below freezing today and tomorrow. Should be our last 2 days. And it's because we're getting that cold Canadian air.
Yeah, that's the way it is. So today you and I were talking and we thought we'd get into the whole rented land, own your content, own your website, own your business conversation. And I think we need to. I've been doing some teaching this week with my good friend Jeff Brown's social media marketing group. And one thing I always tell them is to be careful because you don't own the social media platforms and we know the rules change by the day. So I'm a big proponent of, first of all, let's start with the website side of it. Owning your website. And that means using self-hosted solutions. And it means staying away from closed solutions like Shopify or Etsy. How is your take on that and why?
I'm a huge proponent of self-hosted open source solutions. And, even before I was in WordPress, I was doing some work with Drupal. So, when we talk about self-hosted, we're in the WordPress space right now, but the open source self-hosted options out there have had a long history, over the past 20 plus years. When you talk about Shopify, Etsy, BigCommerce, some of those solutions where they might have a little bit nicer interface, might get you up a little bit quicker. You're on somebody else's server and you are on somebody else's service. So one, you have to abide by their rules. And if, for example, your store is in a particular market, I'm working on a store for a client right now for cannabis, both CBD and THC, and we're building in WordPress because so Shopify is another option, but they're very restrictive, and that cuts out a third of our products that can't be shown on the store. And if they're put up, you're immediately banned and your store is taken down. So that's one of the dangers of running your business operation on someone else's hardware and software, that if you violate some term of service, you're done. They can take your store down in a minute. And if that's where your main source of revenue comes from, you've just killed your business completely.
Yeah, it's so true. And even if you're going to a self-hosted solution like WordPress, you can be taken down if you're on a server, like you're doing some cannabis work. I've done some work in the adult industry, same problem, same rules. There's a lot of web hosts that won't go near that, and it's against their terms of service. So you got to be careful of that. The other problem with using things like Shopify and Etsy is, first of all, if you try and change the payment gateways, it gets really expensive. Shopify has a policy that if you use their payment gateway, you're fine. But if you try to use a non-Shopify approved payment gateway, they just charge you a higher percentage. And then the other problem is if the servers get slow, you can't pick your site up and move it very easily. Whereas if you have a WordPress issue with a host, you can actually pick up your website and move it to another server. I'm actually in the process of doing that for a client right now. So I think that is some outlying issues as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. The platforms are nice, and they're no code solutions for those clients that we have that say I hate WordPress and want to move to a provider that has that no code solution. When we start looking at those no code solutions, though, they're restrictive and they only allow you to do certain things. Now, Shopify has been very good at separating their tiers. So when you start looking at pricing, it doesn't cost you a lot to get started. But then you realize that, oh, I need shipping. So you have to pay for their shipping module that integrates with your preferred shipping provider. Their base platform, just their ground level one, I think they have a 1% fee on top of the payment processor fee. And you don't get away from that until you move to the next tier up, which is a higher monthly cost. And so you start adding these things up, email marketing, and then even within the email marketing, automation, they nickel and dime you, and you really don't realize the full cost of the platform until you're in it. Your entire business is built on it. You've spent hundreds of hours building into the platform, and you're stuck. And you're paying a lot of money for all these things that work pretty well together because you're in a closed platform, but you pay for it.
No, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, I had a client come to me and say, "Oh, I can get Shopify for $29 a month." And I said, "Yeah, as long as you don't want to do anything with it." Because the minute you start adding modules, to get to the point where you're doing anything, like, for example, we all know Yoast in the WordPress space. Well, they have a Shopify module. What they don't tell you is to use that module, you have to be on the $89 plan a month. So, I'm not saying you shouldn't pay for what you get. I'm a big proponent of that. But to say you're going to these no-code solutions to save money if you want to do anything complex is actually going to cost you more, in my opinion.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. And, you touched on Etsy as another platform. And I think Etsy is a great platform. And there are some great integrations with it to Shopify, to WooCommerce, to do two-way product syncing and get you, some more visibility. Last year they had a pricing increase, and a lot of these. I have a few friends that are small jewelry makers and artists, and they just want to get some of their stuff out in the world and make people happy, and it's a hobby. And I think that's where a lot of the Etsy stores started around that people were monetizing their hobbies, that they were making too many things that they could sell for money. Well, they raised their payment processing fees and taking a larger percentage. So, and it got progressively and exponentially worse in favor of Etsy as far as payment, the better you did. And so, we've seen this in not only Etsy, but we talked about Shopify with the modules adding on, but Gumroad is another place to sell digital products. They had a huge price increase for taking a cut of sales. And if you spend a lot of time getting on these platforms and building your store out, that's time lost. You can't just move it. When you really want to look at replatforming, you're stuck. You're starting over from scratch when you're building a store out on another platform. You can possibly export your products, but that's about it.
Oh, I would agree. So my other thing I always say when we're talking about owning your content and owning what you do in your business is there's two things you own. We already talked on your website, right? And the other thing is your email marketing list, not the platform, but the list. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I think people that even use third-party platforms, to run their email marketing, and there are some definite advantages to using a platform and not going self-hosted to do your email marketing. I
Mm-hmm.
personally do self-hosted, and don't worry about my list. But even if you're using, let's say, ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign, it's a good idea to make an export of your list periodically so that you have it
Yeah.
and that you have a backup copy of it. Um, Even those platforms, while they're awesome to use, MailChimp about a year ago made a change in the terms of service. And I had a few clients that their accounts were dumped because they didn't like something that they violated their terms of service. They didn't have a backup of their list.
Mm-hmm.
They were starting from ground zero. And now they're running self-hosted. One of the clients is back up they did some good social media communication, and their subscriber list is back up around 30,000, which is where it was previously. But it took over a year to get that list back where it was. It takes a lot of time and work.
Yeah, it does. Email marketing takes a lot of time. Generally, as a rule, the couple of places I sit is for some basic stuff, MailerLite these days. For some other stuff, if it's self-hosted, MailPoet for a few clients, but it's not what I'm using. And ConvertKit for more complicated things. And then I'm moving actually towards, I was sharing with you before we went to record, to Groundhog in the next couple of months. So, because I want to do some more automation, and frankly, I don't want to pay ConvertKit because of the size of my list, and I'm just going to self-host it and be done. But the problem with being self-hosted is sometimes you got to be a little techie, and that takes a little bit for some people.
Exactly. And, I use Fluent CRM for my mail list capabilities. And I got to tell you, the nice thing about tools like Groundhog and Fluent CRM is they continually get better.
Yep.
And they're really good companies. The owners and the development teams on both those products are really responsive. If you want to offer suggestions and solutions, and the technical part, that only happens around setup, from what I found in either product. It's connecting your forms, connecting your mail compliance on the back end, because you're going to use some SMTP sending service. And once that's done, they've gotten very good where the mapping out automations is a drag and drop process in Fluent CRM, where it's pleasant to build a customer journey and actions within there. So while there is some technical know-how as far as getting set up, once that's done, you're over the hurdle. And I think the self-hosted solutions now are just as good, if not better, than some of the tools that aren't self-hosted that we mentioned: ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, MailerLite, and the others.
No, I would agree with you. It's funny. I think I've shared with you this story, but so I have to issue a disclaimer. The founder of Groundhog, Adrian Toby's an old friend, so I have to say that right off the top. So yeah, I'm a little biased, and I'm allowed to be. And I remember when Adrian was developing that product, and he was working for his parents' company, training business pros in Toronto. And I walk in the office, and Adrian would call me over and say, "Come check this out." And he'd show me something he was building. And at the time, I didn't know that what he was building would actually morph into Groundhog. And Adrian and I have talked about that numerous times over the years. So it was just really interesting to see that product being built from the ground up. So it's been a journey for Adrian, I'm sure. So, and do you notice how I didn't mention Confusionsoft in the middle of all this?
Aren't they now known as what is it? Keep.
Infusionsoft by Keep. And that said, I'm Infusionsoft
Yeah.
trained, and I still won't go near the product. So does that tell you?
They're you blink and there's another new CRM solution out there.
Yeah.
At least it was that way in the late 2010s, rolling up to 2020. It seemed
It
like,
was crazy.
and I, you know, there were a lot of niche ones out there that were really good, and um, the problem that I started seeing with them is they would start you out on this really inexpensive plan, and it was really good for one or two people, and then you start to grow, and then all of a sudden it's $100 per user per month, and then pay for the extra add-on package for the marketing automation. And it got kind of ridiculous, like we were talking about with Shopify, where they make it really easy to start, and they make it difficult to leave because you have so much time invested. But yeah, I mean, they can get expensive, and that's
Yeah.
where these self-hosted solutions were developed from.
No,
Where
no
um,
question. No question. Yeah. I think you're hitting
yeah,
the nail on the head. And the key is, as long as you got good support. Now, what I'll argue is, in the WordPress space, a lot of people say, "Oh, if you put more in WordPress, you're hurting your website." And my argument would be, did you bother to look at your hosting package and what it allows before you say that? Because I think the whole key to WordPress and doing anything self-hosted, whether it's a ticketing system, there are a few out there, whether it's a system like this, a CRM, is to have the proper WordPress resources. So you're not going to do all this on a $2.99 a month plan. I hate to tell people.
yeah, it's been a long while, and you know, even in up through 2020, the late teens, I still would see those like $3 hosting plans,
Yep.
and also advertising the famous one click 5 minute, not even 5 minute WordPress install. I mean 30 seconds, and you can't run a decent website on shared hosting on that.
No.
So when we start talking about self-hosting, you need more resources than the those plans. I mean, those $3 plans, you're sharing your server resources with hundreds, if not thousands, of other websites, and who knows what the content is on there, that that IP that you're sharing might not have some good reputation. So getting good hosting is one thing, and even when we talk about that, I was discussing cannabis site hosting, and a few people mentioned, "Hey, I'm using WP Engine," and somebody else said, "Well, they shut me down." And you have to be careful when you're in these niche and emerging market industries that you comply with your state laws. And, that's where we really come down to. I manage all my own servers. And that's why I have some of the clients that I do, mainly because I allow them to run, the content that they want and need to run their business. And it's all legal. But some of the even the quote unquote good WordPress hosting providers will drop your site if you're not in perfect compliance, or they don't like what you're doing. So, even in the self-hosting area, you need to do your research on where and who you're hosting with.
Yeah, and I would add even more. Support's a big issue, and there have been many hosting companies. Geez, do I want to call anyone out? Yeah, sure. SiteGround, that they start off as being great hosts, and then they grow, and then they say, "Oh, we don't need a support cost because that hurts our business." And you know where that goes, right? Very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I can point out to you specifically a move that they had made to, I think it was to run on Google Cloud underneath. When they had made that move, I don't know if they anticipated how expensive that move was going to be uh, for the efficiency increases. And you're right. It it uh, it kind of hurt their support because I think they couldn't cover all those costs right away, which is unfortunate. I think for a long time, SiteGround was a good host, but I can't recommend them to anyone anymore. Um,
Me neither.
and that's really, why I got into running my own servers. And when I say that, I am using a cloud control panel, Run Cloud. I can't say enough good things about them. Um, they make a lot of things easy as far as spinning up new web applications and the server management from a nice GUI, but they also allow you root access to the server, so you fully own it. And that's a selling point and a benefit that I talk about with my clients, that we can every site gets tailored and optimized specifically, for their needs. You're not just a number.
Yep.
So, when we talk about uh, working with our clients and doing web care, you know, that's one of the benefits that you and I have as smaller providers, that we can provide that agile service and tailor some of our things specifically to clients.
Sure can. I also wanted to jump into, so we've talked about two things you own, and that's your website and your email list. And a lot of people like to market on social media, including you and I at times. And we all know the problems with social media marketing. So the listeners of this show, and my horror story with Facebook that's now going on 2.5 years, by the way, for the record. I cannot post any of my business domain and now my personal domain on Facebook because Facebook tells me I'm not meeting community standards. And I suspect what happened was some competitor filed all kinds of reports saying I was violating all kinds of terms of service, and Facebook's AI decided to outright ban me. Now, if you're a political client, there's all kinds of new rules. You can thank Donald Trump in the U.S. for those rules. Thank you very much, Trumpy. And, there's all kinds of rules that political clients, what they have to fill out to be able to advertise and the games they got to play. If you're in the healthcare industry, you cannot make guarantees on Facebook. They don't allow them in the ads. You can't even suggest a guarantee or a percentage saying 50% of people will be effective with this. You can't do that. It is such a tough game these days. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of Facebook, I usually go through my memories daily on my
Yep.
personal profile, and clean anything up and go through and see what happened, years ago. And 2018, this is when I was in a super growth mode with my agency, and just before I was adding staff to do PPC stuff specifically, and I had talked about um, updating AdWords campaigns and uh, optimizing landing pages, because that was still the heyday that we were able to throw a pixel on site and gather all sorts of fun data and be successful pretty easily.
True.
That's all changed, those platforms. And yeah, I mean, you can thank Donald Trump, because he actually used the data like the, opposing team had done successfully for years. And they said, oops, we don't like it. So people started complaining.
Yeah.
And, that's where we have a lot of the new privacy laws. GDPR in Europe was already becoming, was already a thing at that point. And, we were starting just to see it in the North American markets
And
after that.
Canada's going that way too, Ryan. I mean, we
Hmm.
not to interrupt you, but we can carry this on. We've got all these video creators who have built platforms on TikTok, and they're on the verge because they haven't built those platforms anywhere else of losing their entire audience because there's big discussion whether it will get banned in the US. I think it will eventually, which means it will get banned in Canada. And what happens to all those creators and all the time and money they've invested?
Absolutely. In, I think when I was switching from Drupal to WordPress in around 2012 to 2014, in that time era, I was starting to talk to businesses, that didn't have a website. And they said, oh, well, I have a Facebook page. I don't need it.
Yep.
And that was the thing where businesses started just solely running on social media platforms. And, it's such a different game. I talked about this briefly in my newsletter recently
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, a lot of these social media influencers, and there's one case example, a gal had millions of followers. And then she said, oh, I want to launch some, clothing lines and try and run it through the Instagram shop. She made 7 sales in a week. And, I, I think, we need to look at social media as a completely different tool, for entertainment. One, but if you do use it for business, you can't really rely on it because one, it's not, that's not what it's designed for. One, and two, again, we've talked about violating terms of service. Things can change overnight, whether it's a law or public sentiment, that you can find your store making zero money. And if that's your only asset, your only piece of, land, digital real estate out there, and you don't own any of it, and you get locked out of it, your business is done.
So true.
And I I don't think a lot of people realize this, that, your Facebook shop can get shut down at a pretty quickly.
But it's not just that,
And
it's outages too. Like Facebook and Instagram have had some really big outages. And I know a person who lost, no word of a lie, $30,000 in the last Instagram outage because he refused to build a website and sell everything on a shop. Now, if he was on a shop, the odds are he probably would have been up faster than the 24 hours that Instagram was down. And he figures he lost 30 grand, if you can believe that.
oh, yeah, I that's not hard to believe at all. And so really, what we need to think about is build your website, and then that is your hub, and you push out through the spokes, and these are your social media platforms. So whenever I'm working with a new client, and we're building an e-commerce shop, we can mirror those products on Facebook, Instagram, without a problem. But or Google Merchant Center, but those are all pushed from the store, and those are all channels that we market through. But if
Right.
any one of those falls off, you can still find and purchase things from the store,
Right.
and you own that real estate. And unfortunately, it requires time, maintenance, thought, on how you're going to improve it, which is work. And that's
Mhm.
another piece where when you're starting a business, either one, you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time, and a lot of these small business owners, they don't know how to get online, and they don't want to spend the time learning how to build a website.
Yep.
So they don't do it. And then the ones that go viral overnight and they're successful, sometimes they come back and do it and, work it backwards. But a lot of people never get to that point, and some of them, get shut down and locked out, which is unfortunate.
And the ones going viral, let's be honest, are far and few between compared to the number of people trying to sell digitally online these days. It doesn't happen very often. And, unless you're a big name, i.e. the Kardashians, you're probably not going to go viral these days. It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's not even 1% of people that, have viral success overnight.
Yeah. So what I would suggest to anybody who's marketing on social is to try and get those clients off social media sooner. Get them on your email list. Get them on your website. Get them on the phone. Get them away from social media sooner than later, personally.
Absolutely. I mean, we look at social media platforms and they're, from when they were released, really, hits certain demographics. I mean, you look at Facebook as being boomers and Gen Z, mainly because of the time it was released. Mm-hmm. Then you start looking at Twitter hitting the millennial market heaviest because it was released a little bit later and was more popular with that market. Late millennials and Gen Z, we see Snapchat, Instagram, and some of the other younger platforms. And, the current generation is all TikTok, 100%. They're on very few other platforms because it's new. It's the new hot, fun thing, and their parents aren't on it.
And their parents aren't there, so they can hide.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and why, these platforms are split across generationally. But, when you're looking at, that rented land out there, it's, you're only hitting a certain section of demographics. And, I broke them down by age. There are other differentiating factors, but your website is out there available for everyone. And, yep. I talk about Twitter and being heavy millennial. It's actually only, out of the social media users, it's less than 10%. I think it's gone up and down, but it's still only got 10% of, active social media users daily. So, you have to take those factors in, that if you build your store on rented land, you're only hitting a very small percentage of a very specific age demographic and user base. So you're also missing out on people that aren't on the platform, whether they just don't use it because their friends and colleagues aren't there, or they have political differences with the ownership, whatever the case may be. Yeah, the new platform Twitter, it might be one that I'm hitting pretty heavily here. But yeah, when you're on somebody else's rented land, one, you're at the whims of the platform, but two, you're only hitting the demographic of the users on that platform. And so you're limiting yourself quite a bit.
So true. So true. Ryan, thanks for sharing your time today. Always appreciate the conversation. I think listeners will get a lot out of this, and it's good food for thought. It's more about protecting your business. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get you?
I'm going to tell you, on every major social media platform at One Dog Solutions. You can find my website, onedog.solutions, or email me at ryan.waterbury@onedog.solutions.
And the whole key for Ryan getting back to you is that those two office managers in his office actually do their work. I don't know what they're up to today, but, they tend not to do much. So.
Well, we're getting that cold shot of Canadian air, so it's overcast, cold, and depressing today.
So that means they're sleeping again.
Exactly.
So, Ryan, thank you very much. You have an amazing day, my friend.
You too.
This episode of the STM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to Ryan for joining me on this edition of the STM Show. Thank you for listening to this edition of the STM Show. The STM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.